I think we here at the channel called this like a week ago. We made a video that we looked at the USNI map and said there's 7, maybe 8 aircraft carrier groups all underway. And now here they are a week later. Just to show you, this is the October 30 map that we were using at the time, and now here is the modern one, or at least the most recent one, November 6th. And it shows that the Kearsarge is back in dock and the Wasp is back. So any issue in Venezuela, if it's going to happen, now would be the time to do it for them. But we are going to talk about something a little bit different today regarding the Fitzgerald and the McCain. I went through this transcript. I didn't listen to the man and saw what he said, and I do that specifically just so I can read the words and see exactly what was said and not get involved in the banter, the back and forth between him and the reporters. There's a huge problem with what he's saying and what he's alleging has happened here, and the Navy is saying about this lack of training, this culture of unpreparedness, this idea that the lower amount of ships being put out, they have 100 deployed of 335 versus 100 deployed of 267, that none of that can explain this for one reason. If it's a training issue, if it's an issue of sleep, you would see these problems across the Navy. You would see this in other types of vessels. You would see this in the Middle East. You would see this here domestically. You would see it in Europe. You would see this type of event happening on ships other than Arleigh Burke class destroyers or Tycho missile destroyers. And that's what the Lake Champlain, Antietam, Fitzgerald, and McCain are. Even the kid that went missing. I can't remember the name of that ship now, but that was also another Tycho class. And the replacement for the Fitzgerald is actually another Tycho class. It is the Cowpens. Not the Cowpens. The Cowpens is Arleigh Burke. They have 2 ships that have replaced the McCain and the Fitzgerald. One of them is a Tycho class. So it's only 2 classes of ships and only one small, tiny area over in Asia that we are seeing these issues. So this isn't a training or culture thing. We did see, yes, the issue with the Porter, and that was in someone help me out here, the 5th Fleet, when that happened in 2012. But as we have shown clearly, the Navy behaved in an entirely different manner regarding that, and there was no naval stand down. There was no naval contemplating our naval type of thing. And they just said, here's the bridge audio, here's what happened. We had 2 guys that screwed up, and we dealt with it. Now we have this thing, and it's very clear, especially in the issue with the Fitzgerald, that they were lying from day one. If this were truly the issue, why all the lying? Why the non-disclosure agreements? You would think non-disclosure agreements would actually exacerbate the problem. Because if these sailors feel like they can't speak about the problems on board to people other than their direct superiors, that's going to make it much worse. So, and in both cases, they had to sign non-disclosure agreements. The issue with the McCain, I'm looking back at a little bit. I know I kind of let it go. The steering failure, someone had brought up that it just seems awful convenient that it happened when it did and how it did, and that both of these crews were completely unable to keep control of their ships. That's something to be looked into, absolutely, for sure. It is a very strange thing that we see just a very, very specific ship on a very, very specific mission in a very, very specific area having this exact same problem, losing control of the ship. One ran aground, one ran into a fishing vessel, one got clobbered both of them got clobbered by the other 2 clobbered by cargo vessels. Cargo vessels that it's now been reported that they absolutely knew were there. See, initially when this was reported was that it was something where the Navy ship and the Crystal just didn't see each other, didn't know each other there, and just dumb luck they ran into each other, which absolutely not the case now. Both crews knew of each other, knew where each other was, and still hit each other. That doesn't happen. That just doesn't happen. And with the issue with the McCain, that it lost, that it just, first of all, that they said at the McCain that the thing went into the gentle left-hand turn, gentle port turn, without anybody on board being aware. No. Sorry, I don't care how bad your crew is. I bet I could pick a couple dozen guys off of our contributors list and put them on the bridge, and I bet they could figure out if they're turning left or not, regardless of the status of the equipment. It's just, it's beyond believable. And this is the problem, too, with the media. And I know a lot of people think I'm a liberal. I'm not. I'm a conservative. And this is the problem with the liberal media. They know absolutely nothing about weapons. That's why they can't get the gun issue right. And they know nothing about the military because they're so anti-gun and anti-military. They don't know the right questions to ask when, and they don't realize when they're being bullshitted. It takes people like the contributors to this channel, former military folks, to go, hold on, stop, no, lies, absolute, total fabrications. And like we referenced yesterday, when you have electronics intelligence that tells you one thing and human intelligence that tells you another, that's when you start to set off the alarm bells. And I guess I brought the wrong tab here. In the report, it is just absolutely beyond believable to state that this issue was totally on the crew of the Fitz. When in both cases, if I'm not mistaken, they're saying that in one case here, that the radar couldn't pick up or did not have the ability to pick up, at least temporarily, a 700-foot long, 10-story tall vessel 3 nautical miles away that could be seen with binoculars. Because remember, the junior officer sighted it visually. So they saw a ship visually and still sailed into it. What does that tell you? Now, I know a couple of you have given me links to this Paul Craig Roberts thing. I'm not saying that there's not some truth to what the man's saying, but to listen to the man speak, we have to be very careful to police ourselves in this. That we can't believe. He goes a little bit over the top. Because he was speaking in 2015 about how the Russians allowed us to shoot one jet down and say, okay, this is the only jet you're allowed to shoot down, and we can just shut everything else down, and you can't do anything. We shot another one down in 2017. And honestly, we wouldn't be the people the Russians would have to worry about. If this really did exist, the Chinese would know about it, and the Chinese would have overrun Russia by now. They would not let another country right there close to them have the ability just to turn off their electronics. That how the interwebs work over in Asia versus how they work here, totally different. And then there's no way this would have gone on this long. I'm sure there is a weapon out there. Please don't misunderstand. Yes, there is a weapon out there. And yes, it has some limited capabilities to do specific things like it did with the Fitzgerald. I'm telling you, I know it's a crazy thing, but Asian navies use mines much more prevalently than Western navies do. Not all mines explode with such forces to break the stem of the ship. Just like nuclear weapons that are designed to pop off EMP pulses aren't incredibly destructive. They're designed to do EMP, not destruction. And if they would have a weapon, a small mine that could EMP a ship on contact, because I know EMPs don't go through water. That's the thing about EMP. If you have electronics that are more than 10 feet underwater, I don't care how many EMPs you pop off, they're going to be fine. They just don't go through water. It would have to be a contact thing where they zapped the ship. And also, the argument against that is that we wouldn't have necessarily need to see the ACX Crystal make 2 course changes to try to hit the Fitz. If they really wanted to drop the Fitz dead in the water, we would have seen a ship sail straight right into him. Because they would have just been a sitting target, but they weren't. They were clearly moving. They were moving not under their own control and in a way that they couldn't predict. And, there could have been a lot of combination of different things happening. That the captain wasn't on the bridge, I think, is still damning, and also somehow was able to call the bridge from hanging from the side of the ship. The people writing the reports, I mean, they honestly had to be looking at them going, are we really going to try to pull this? I know I'm just kind of talking off of the cuff here, but reading through that thing where he goes on for God knows how long about culture of the Navy and lack of sleep and all this kind of thing. Once again, the point of this video, we would see it across the board. We would see it in vessels of all different sizes. We would see it in different areas. We would see it in aircraft operations. We would see it in, if it was really a 7th Fleet culture problem, we wouldn't see it so specific to these one ships on this one mission in this tiny little area. Because the Antietam, the Champlain, the McCain, the Fitzgerald, all in one area, and all ships with a very, very specific mission. They are anti-ballistic missile ships in an area where we have a country that is launching ballistic missile after ballistic missile and threatening to launch ballistic missiles against America. Logic tells you right then and there, that's where you need to be looking. So anyway, 11 and a half minutes. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate all of the folks that have come here. I'm going to try to mention people at the end of each video. Let's see, Robert Bigelow has come here. Thy Majestic One, USN for America, has come and mentioned. And every time I do this, I always say that I'm going to remember these names, and I don't, so I apologize. Just absolutely the best contributors, bar none. Aransas, Aransas, one of the people that brought the link to the former Reagan administration official, Paul Craig Roberts. Like I said, take that kind of stuff with a grain of salt. Usually the truth exists somewhere in between, the two stories of one stating that it doesn't exist and one saying that it's the end of the world. It's somewhere in between there. And more than likely fairly boring. So like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thank you.